Welcome to Fortress of Faith with Tom Wallace, calling North America to repentance and revival.
Well, welcome back once again to the Corner of Truth and Courage. Tomorrow marks 20 years of the anniversary of 9/11. Today I want to take the opportunity to kind of bring us more into the understanding that Islamic terrorism has been with us for a long, long time, and it will remain with us for a long, long time until we learn why they do it, what it is that's driving them to do these things. And I want to go back in history a little bit to kind of give you, a little bit of an understanding of why of late terrorism is growing and why of late there's a mass exodus of Muslims moving to the West. And there's a good side about it and a bad side about it. And I believe we owe it to those who died so that their death would not be in vain. We owe it to them, to their families, to those who survived that terrible attack. I had the privilege of meeting one person. We've had her on the program in the past, and she's very astute. She's a lawyer. She writes a lot on the issues of Islamic terrorism because of what happened to her. And she was there. She wasn't in the towers, but she wasn't far. She had to run for her life as the towers came down. I can't imagine what it would be like to be a survivor, to walk away from it. No one walked away from it unharmed. We were all harmed. We were harmed watching this. And I believe we owe it to them that died and their families and all those who served as our emergency services, who tried to help. Many of them perished themselves in this. And as I said, we owe it to them. And if we fail to recognize the why, then we failed them and we're failing our country, because we'll put not only our children at future risk, but ourselves at risk to Islamic terrorism. Our problem, in a way, is that our country is trying to be polite. We're trying to say that it's okay for you to have different opinions and different ideologies and even a different religion. We accept that in our country. We have laws to allow differences of views, but we need to also realize some views are devilish, evil, wicked. I don't think any of us would have a hard time saying that anyone who's a follower and who practices Nazism would be considered not a threat to our society. I think everyone would say Hitler was an evil man, because we can look back in history and see what he did, see what he said. Mein Kampf, his writing in Mein Kampf basically means my struggle. Well, in Islam, the word jihad means the struggle. And Mein Kampf is a favorite reading of Muslims. They loved Hitler. They warred with him. They joined his, I don't know if you realize this, but there were 4 Islamic SS divisions. Muslim Brotherhood was involved in fighting with Hitler during World War II. Why not? They both had many of the same goals: to rid the world of Jews, and so, they both thought, hey, this sounds great. Let's team up. Let's rid the world of the Jews. And they both kind of felt about each other. For now, we have a common purpose, and so we'll help each other. But there'll come a time that eventually we'll war against each other. We'll fight each other, but for now, we've got a common enemy. And so I had prepared today, and I did an earlier taping, and I just felt this isn't what we need today. There's a long, 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 long list of attacks of Islamic terrorism since the 1970s. And the sad thing is that when they attacked us on 9/11, a lot of people were just, their jaws hit the floor. Not only just the attack and how big it was and the death and we all knew our world was changing. That nothing would be the same. We all knew that. But we didn't quite know what was going to come about. And we said we would never forget. Well, we should have said, we're going to figure this out and understand why and make sure this never happens again. And the problem is we've not chosen that path. So let's go back in some history so you understand what's been going on. The Islamic world was ruled for 500 years by the Ottoman Empire. And this is in Turkey. And during that time, now there were some militant things going on then, certainly. But for the most part, the Ottoman Empire reformed the religion of Islam. They took it from its militant side and stopped teaching and preaching the jihad, and they kept the religion. Even though this is Turkey, they kept the religion being taught in Arabic. Well, only 15% of the Muslims in the world are Arabs. And so 85% of the Muslim world has no idea what's being preached in their sermons and read from the Quran. It's read and preached in Arabic and then explained in their local language. And so they really don't know for sure what's being said. And you're never really allowed to read the Quran properly unless it's done in the Arabic. A lot of people don't have any clue there. And so they changed the religion. And they took away the militancy. And fortunately, a good host of Muslims in the world, 80% of them, have been indoctrinated with a reformed view of Islam. They actually believe that Islam is a peaceful religion because that's what they've been taught, about 80% of them. But in World War I, the Ottoman Empire joined the evil Axis there, and they lost World War I, and the Ottoman Empire came to a close, the last caliphate, their caliphate. And so this wrested away Islam from the moderates, from the reformers, and it gave an opportunity for the fundamentalists to regain the Islamic world. 3 different movements, fundamental movements, we call it Salafism, began. A movement in Egypt, where you had the Muslim Brotherhood. A movement in Saudi Arabia was born, and then a movement up in Iran with the Shiites was born. And so these fundamentalist movements began to grow, and their influence began to grow in the Middle East. And as it's growing, it becomes more and more militant. And by the 1970s is when they began to lash out with their jihad, with their holy war against the West, and mainly against the great Satan and Israel. Because Israel was becoming established as a nation and America was supporting them, they couldn't tolerate that. And so their terrorism began to become international. And I was going to read this long list, and to tell you, it's long. It really is. And it's so repetitive again and again. But America was being targeted. Our embassies were being targeted. Our diplomats were being targeted. Our military were being targeted, but also our citizens overseas. Again and again and again and again. Probably over 80 different attacks I could have gone through with you today, where Americans lost their life by American terrorism. This was long before 9/11. So when we were attacked on 9/11, we were kind of asleep at the wheel. We weren't paying attention. We didn't realize. I didn't get it back then. That's what really provoked me to start studying this better. And we've got to admit, the enemy is Islam. And until we do, we will never have peace until we admit this and realize that Islam declared war on us 1,400 years ago. Now, again, there's still a lot of moderate Muslims out there, Reformed Muslims. They don't have an idea of what the real true teaching of Islam is. But what's going on is that as the terrorism, as the fundamentalism grows and grows and grows in the Middle East, now the moderate Muslims over there are seeing the real face of Islam, and they're being forced to get into, to shape up, or ship out, so to speak. And as that's happening, the average moderate, non-practicing Muslim who wants to live kind of, in a peaceful way is saying, if this is the real Islam, we don't want anything about it. So they are leaving the Middle East. Over 5 million Muslims have left the Middle East and headed for Europe and the Americas over the last 3 to 4 years. Now, that's good news because a lot of them are coming to get away from Islam. But the bad news is that they can't help themselves. They're bringing Islam with them. Now, the good news part, again, is that we have an opportunity to reach a people group that we've never been able to reach before. We couldn't get our missionaries over there. But now they're coming to us where the gospel is at, and it gives us an opportunity to give the gospel to them. And so, Christians, we better take opportunity of that. But as citizens, I'm going to speak to you as a citizen, as a person that should demand of their country to protect them. We need to insist that we realize and admit Islam is an ideology as dangerous as Hitler, as dangerous as Nazism. We ought to do everything we can to prohibit its growth and its propagation here in our country. We need to watch carefully every Muslim, because any Muslim, moderate or not, because they could be playing well, I'm a moderate Muslim, all that kind of stuff there. They could be putting on a show and preparing an Islamic attack against us. We need to watch them very carefully. We need to vet them very carefully when they come into our country. Again, Islam, we need to separate the difference between Islam and the Muslim. The Muslim are the people. They need Christ. But Islam is an ideology of a man who called his people to war against unbelievers. And if you're not a believer in Islam, then in Islam you have two realms, Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb, the house of submission, the house of Islam, the house of submission, or Dar al-Harb, the house of war. You're either friend or foe. There's no middle ground. We didn't write those rules. They did. And we have to be aware of it, and we have to be brave enough to admit it and to stand up and oppose it. And for the sake of those who died on 9/11, for their sake, for their memory, and their families, we better stand up to the challenge. That's it today. That's it for this week. Join us next week at the Corner of Truth and Courage. God bless you.